of collaborating, work-based learning as an educational component and gathering feedback and using it directly, like you did in your place and elsewhere. And learners as well, being out in the work environment and coming back in.
I'm conscious the board needs to get back into the city centre for another meeting, so isn't that right?
If anybody has questions, or will you ask now? Yes, you might stay for a few minutes.
Sign up. Okay.
I'm really curious about before. I'm actually doing my assignment on the engineering business.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, so I might be follow up with that.
Please, yes, absolutely. That'd be great.
I'm Barry from the Limerick Institute of Technology, and I'm absolutely not trying to introduce the active, and we try to have active learning, but never, it's probably just maybe not working in attendance and not working training. So we're looking to create an entrepreneurship modules which is active. Really activities out here on the back end and the stream. So I'm because yeah, it's something that is talked about.
Yes.
Talked about.
Yes.
But actually, the engagement. There's a clear level of change in relation to the criteria of relation to bringing employers in and making it all dynamic, which it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be because the students at the end of the day it's literally we're nurturing them to go out to the workplace and this whole journey. I have gone through there a couple of years ago with employers who are leaving us market from the North region when I was teaching there. Their expectations, so it's both sides. Both sides. Absolutely, and so more dialogue with them.
And now we entrepreneurs, raise students is another qualification issue. Who has the authority to make that grade? Do you understand? You come across that when we have students on placement. You know, we give marks on the placement, but we're not sure. The employer could be insane, it could be so it could be a colleague that's marked the thing called you know. Do you understand?
Yeah, there's quality issue there, and it comes on the institution's remit.
And even as we're
Yeah,
There's
but that's why I have to blend this, fully blend and consider it as opposed to just lump it up. No more.
Okay, well then let's move on. Simon Bridge, as I said to you earlier on, has been involved in the whole entrepreneurship education landscape for a good few years, and he's got a very interesting presentation, and so he's been doing a lot of thinking, reflecting, and from the publications he has, which he mentioned to you in his promo tour at the end of the presentation, you see, you can read more about stuff. So I'll let you introduce yourself and your background and what brought you to where you are now. Yeah.
Thank you. I suppose what brought me to where I am now is that back in 1984, I don't remember when it was, when I was actually working in the shipyard in Belfast, someone suggested I might want to apply for a job in what was the Northern Ireland Government's Local Enterprise Agency, small business agency really called Local Enterprise Development Unit, or better known as LEDU, which I didn't know much about, but I'd done a small business option in business school, so I thought, well, I'm not going anywhere in the shipyard, Nick wasn't going anywhere either, so I thought, might as well apply for this. And so I hadn't done much with small business, but I got this job. So I spent about 9 years in the agency before I decided to go off my own and sort of practice what I preach. But also having been to conferences about this and conscious that a lot of people work in this area, but there was very little written. So I started writing books which became textbooks about it, I suppose. So I've been involved in trying to work out what we're doing to promote enterprise and small business almost ever since. And I suppose, with respect to what Owen was saying earlier, I used to say to people, because my career has changed at various times, I used to say that I still haven't worked out what I want to be when I grow up. I now realise it's too late. So the journey is more important than having a final goal. But what I want to do today is just think a little bit, because you will find I can speak for ages on this. So I call it Rethinking Enterprise. And the reason...
That's right, the right arrow. Yeah, there you go.
Reason for the rethinking is it does strike me that just occasionally we need to reflect on whether we are actually learning the right things. This was a nice little story I found that, according to current medical opinion, George Washington was probably killed by his doctors because he got what, again, modern diagnosis based on the recording of what the symptoms were. He had severe inflammation in the epiglottis, but in those days, the cure for a lot of things was bleeding people, so his doctors bled him about 4 times in a period of 10 hours and took about half his blood away. With the result that, one opinion says it was the bleeding that killed him, not sulfate. But if you actually look at medical history, bleeding was an established medical practice. It was actually evidence-based. It goes back to the Hippocratic doctors in Greece, and people say, well, that among the first doctors who tried to observe the human body, not just go on superstition and big witch doctors, they observed that, as far as they could see, there were a number of what they call humors, or different liquids in the human body. One, there's a pale liquid, which comes out as spit or sweat or something. There's this red liquid, which we call blood. They observed people injured in battles that if you lost a lot of blood, you got cold and you got dry. Therefore, they decided the effect of blood was to make it hot and wet. And there were other liquids as well. There's a bile in the intestines. And they decided that if a healthy body was where the humors were in balance, and if humors got out of balance, then that was when it became ill. And if blood made you hot and wet, if you were too hot and wet, you must have too much blood. So if you've got a fever, we need to take some blood away. Now, in those days, of course, that's what the medical schools were teaching. Evidence-based, that's what the doctors learned. That's what the patients wanted. And a lot of people got better. Some of them were going to get better anyhow, and you could still got a placebo effect. But modern opinion nevertheless says that it was probably very bad practice. So just because it's received wisdom and everyone wants it and no one's disagreeing with it and everyone in power is teaching it, doesn't necessarily mean it's right. And those were coincidentally 3 American quotes all about the need occasionally just to rethink things. And I like Mark Twain in particular, that it's not what you don't know, the problem is what you do know that is actually wrong. And I came across a concept, I came across about 6 months ago, which to my mind, I thought summarized this. And it was the concept of the half-life of knowledge. Those with any scientific leaning at all will realize that half-life comes from physics, by radioactive substances and a half-life, which is the period of time over which you have a substance, a sample of substance, half of it will deteriorate to something else. And the example I always quote is most carbon is carbon-12, which is very stable. Carbon-14 isn't, it deteriorates, but relatively slowly. If you have a sample of carbon-14, after something like, I think it's 5,600 years, half of it will disappear. And further 5,600 years, half of the remainder will disappear. It's not the other half, it's half the time. Which is why you use that for carbon dating, because those are useful dates. Carbon-16, I think, exists because of half-life, something like 2.5 seconds. It means after a minute you've got none left, so you can't date with that. But with those substances, a lot of them have half-lives, some very short, some very long. This suggests in fields of knowledge we have a similar thing, a period of time over which knowledge is found to be lacking, like medicine. And if you actually look on the internet, people quote in some branches of medicine half-lives of as little as 10 years or less. For some branches, I haven't actually tracked down a definite quote on this, but certainly people reporting medical school, which is now telling the students, certainly in your working life, if not within the next 10 years, half of what we're now going to teach you will be used. So to my mind, the idea of this was different subjects, they all have half-lives of knowledge. The issue isn't whether you have a half-life, it's how long it is. Some, it's very long. Now, maths, you might say, is the exception, it's got an infinite half-life. On the whole, mathematics, things like Pythagoras' theorem, ones that are true and stay true. But even physics, everyone looks to physics because it was brilliant. Newton did a brilliant analysis. Look how many problems he solved, how easily it was to understand things after Newton. Even Einstein showed that Newton wasn't as accurate as possible to be, and Einstein was better. So even in physics, you realise things change. I'm suggesting enterprise and entrepreneurship is a very applied thing like medicine, and it's probably got a similar short half-life. And either we can say, no, we can't be that bad, that's wrong, we shouldn't think we're getting things wrong. Or we can admit it's the natural order of things. It's actually how you learn and make assumptions and test them and go back and check. And we do much better to admit it. So I just want today to cover possibly two areas, I think, where you might say one where we are, I think, teaching the wrong thing, and the other where we're not teaching the right thing. So where I think we are applying the wrong knowledge. I'm just going to start with this because those two creatures that I'm showing there behave very differently, but botanically speaking, they're the same thing. They're both cabbage whites. And the reason I'm putting that up is it was Dame Edith Penrose, who about 55 years or more ago said that she was looking at how businesses changed as they evolved. And she came up with the analogy that you should not think of small businesses as being like big businesses, because they're different as caterpillars are from butterflies. And it seems to me that often we are applying big business thinking. And small businesses are not small big businesses. I think this, for instance, is an area where we're applying big business thinking. So I'm just going to explore that a little bit. This is actually, of course, Northern Ireland, it's investment now. Photograph I took at Belfast City Airport very recently. That if you start a business, you need a business plan. That was there for assistance for those who want to start businesses. And I think it's because almost big business thinking has become the default. If people see the word business, even in small business, they say, oh, I know about business. This is how businesses work. They don't think of small businesses as being different. And I think I suggest it arises because an awful lot of the professionals, accountants, academics, agency staff, etc., who know about business have actually learned fundamentally from a big business model. And if you think about big businesses, they've got nice formal hierarchies, they've got different functions. And those are, marketing, production, finance are done in different departments, sometimes in different buildings, even different sites. They've got professional managers who are focused clearly on business goals, and therefore supposedly being objective and rational decision making. And those do not apply to small businesses. I mean, small businesses do not do marketing, production, finance. It's often the same person. So those are the things they learn, and this is the sort of model that I think we, without thinking, try to apply. And if you actually think about business plans, who's advocating them? I suggest it is bankers. I put them first because I got one quote from Alan Gale who suggests that actually he thinks bankers invented them. But it's clearly, they like them. If the client's done a business plan, before you advance a loan, you've got in your drawer the reason why it's good, an assessment is being done. Business schools, someone else pointed out, business schools, because they teach, like big businesses, they teach finance separate from production, separate from marketing. This is the one exercise that unites all the different bits of teaching in a business school, which don't otherwise normally talk to each other. And you can market. So they like business plans. If you're a trainer and you teach what's in a business plan, no one's going to fault you saying you talk the wrong things. If you're trying to do a course for startups and you go through the issues of the business plan, that's what people expect. And agencies, again, rather like bank managers, you go for a grant, and they want a business plan because then they've got justification on file. So all those people like business plans, but none of those include the actual people starting a small business. Or as I briefly call it, a new small venture. Because I think if you call it a small business, it's that word business sometimes triggers the big business thinking. So I think that, however, nevertheless, business plans are problems because if you've been through one, fundamentally, they're based on you do market research, you get a sales forecast, now on that, you build all your financial projections of how much money you need to invest in the production facility, your staffing, etc. All those on that. Actually, a lot of people recognize for something new, you can't predict what's going to happen. It's a point I'm going to come to later. That I think suggesting business plans encourage very limited thinking, because once you invest a lot of time and effort, you want to make it happen. You decided that's my predetermined path I'm going. So you're always putting blinkers on, and you think because you worked it all out, it's no matter what's going to happen. I've reduced the uncertainty. And I also suggest it actually misses a few things. And at this point, I was going to mention the brain. I only talk about left and right brain thinking. And my recent reading on this has been effective. Ian McGilchrist, quote there, has done a lot of work on this. He says a lot of our early thinking about different sides of the brain has turned out to be wrong, but there clearly are different sides. And a very short quote I like. The left hemisphere narrows things down to certainty, and the right hemisphere opens up to a possibility. His little example of two sides of the brain, he says even small birds clearly have two sides to their brain. If you imagine a little sparrow in the gravel up there pecking away, it's doing two things simultaneously. First of all, it's trying to find something to eat. So it's picking up little things, saying, is that a seed I can eat? Is it a stone thrown away? It needs a very quick yes-no model. Not pick it up and philosophize and turn it around and cook it. It's pick it up. Do I eat it or throw it away? Very quick yes-no model, certainty, that's left brain. But if the same little bird isn't at the same time maintaining 360-degree awareness of the possibility of danger, it's going to be someone else's lunch. So it needs a quick yes-no model at the certainty at the same time as the possibility of danger. So it's got two sides of the brain, one for each. And it's using both. It isn't that we are left brain or right brain. We should be both brains and use both. His point is we, in the West, we've been tending too much to focus on the left and the right. So I put this in here because I think this is part of business plans mind, a very left brain thinking. They try to narrow things down to what's going to happen. And I think the assumptions made in here is to talk about entrepreneurship. First of all, I think we've assumed it's a subset of business, so this business thinking applies. I suggest instead of thinking that this is a subset of business, we say no. Actually, new ventures, I think, are much more in common with explorers than they do with big businesses. So I want to explore the exploration analogy. And also, explorers, you see, don't know quite what they're going to find if they're at all sensible. So they're acting accordingly. And one example I thought was just to quickly go through Christopher Columbus. I get him as sort of almost one of the most famous explorers, but was he an explorer or an entrepreneur? Very quickly, his history. He was born 2 years before Constantinople fell. When Constantinople fell, it shut Western Europe in off the Silk Route. So there was a demand for access to the Far East, for things that had come across the Silk Route and weren't any longer. His sailing experience and his general knowledge of the world, people in those days were saying the world was round, not it was flat. So he thought, in that case, you can go the other way. And he relied on two estimates, not his, but he picked up. First of all, how far Japan was where he was aiming for. Japan was going, if you went east to Japan, he had an estimate, which turned out to be too big. And he had an estimate of the size of the Earth, which is too small. If you put those together, it's a much shorter distance going the other way than in reality. One of the problems was, in those days, you didn't have international standard kilometers. most countries worked in miles, but they all had their own different mile. And therefore, when you took estimates from different countries, it was very easy to get mixed up on and use different miles at various stages. But he had an estimate, he could do it going the other way. His ships, he knew, were capable of getting that far back again. So he thought he could get Japan that way. The problem was he needed support because he couldn't do it. He had to raise money. He eventually got the Catholic monarchs of Spain to support him, and he set off. And he went across the Atlantic 4 times. From the histories I've read, people say it's still not clear if when he died he realised he had not got to Japan. And some people say he still thought he was very close. He didn't realise he was only halfway across to Japan, and he found a different continent. Also, he had an arrangement with the Spaniards that he would get a percentage of all the trading with Japan. If he found a route, he'd get a percentage of all trading, he'd be very rich. He fell out with them, and so he died almost in poverty. But the Spaniards made a lot of, took a lot of gold out of America. They didn't get Japan, they didn't get the silk route, but they got the gold. So if you want to summarise it, you could say he saw a possibility of enriching himself by developing a service. He raised the funding for that. He persevered, launched his venture. If he'd done a business plan, he could say 2 goals: one, to get Japan, and secondly, thereby to make myself rich. And he didn't achieve either. So you could say he'd done a business plan, you could say it failed. But his backers made a lot of money from it by realising that they hadn't found what they thought they found, but they found something very useful, which I think is what explorers do. So is he an entrepreneur and explorer? I think it's a typical story of an entrepreneur. But I think it also shows the relevance of using exploration as a metaphor here. And that's why I think you covered effectuation. But it seems to be, it is very consistent with this. So if you don't mind, I mean, Sarah Saraswati was looking up expert entrepreneurs. She went to people who actually got to stock market flotation and looked at, as I put it, not what we thought they ought to do, but how they actually thought. And she had various categories of people who to talk to. Again, she had a list of 40, she talked to 30, she stopped at 30 because they were all saying the same thing. She couldn't use 3 of the ones, so she just left with some 27. And they're the ones who are saying, don't trust market research. I heard her say this in the presentation, and the explanation. They didn't believe the future was preordained. And if it's not preordained, it can change from now until then. So don't waste money trying to predict what's going to happen, because that can change. What you can do, however, is affect what's going to happen. You can change the future, rather than sitting down and saying, it will be like this, but if I do this, it might be like that. So that's, again, why business plans and more market research not to be relied on. And she said, really, 2/3 or 3/4 of the time are following these principles of effectuation, which, if you don't mind me quickly repeating, starting where you are, which tends to be what explorers do. Look, this is where I am. Not I'm going to go to the other side of the world and explore back and go from here. I like the explorer, the affordable loss principle, which again I think applies to explorers. You know, when you don't go so far that you can't get back if that isn't the route. Some explorers, of course, don't follow that principle, and either they strike lucky and they get through, or they kill themselves. But it's still a sensible principle. The patchwork quilt of forming partnerships, the lemonade principle, which if Columbus had applied that and said, look, I'm not in Japan, I'm not finding silks, there's a lot of gold here, let's build on that. That's the lemonade principle. If life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And you don't have to follow your predetermined path of business plan. As you see an obstacle, you steer around it, or you see an opportunity, you steer towards it, you've got a path with you. So it was going through those very quickly, because I was going to suggest applying those to a situation of exploration. We in conjunction with Cecilia Hegarty, we come up with 10 principles of this. The first one we're suggesting, and I know it could take a long time to go through, so I'm just going to skate over. You know, we're talking about people starting enterprises. Why? It isn't, that isn't the end goal. That is in order to do something. So what's the goal you're trying to achieve through your enterprise? This is the don't commit more than you can afford to lose principle for effectuation, and that's effectuation as well, starting from where you are. But we don't say don't plan at all. We don't have business plan, but you do some back of the envelope calculations. Numbers, are my ships capable of getting me the distance I think I've got to go to? So you do some planning. But finally, the only reliable test of whether your new thing will sell is actually get out there and try and sell it. Not ask people, if I made this, will you buy it? We also like the idea that there's a lot of benefit in actually getting started. Rather than sitting and analysing and should I start? Once you started, you almost feel, right, I'm now underway, something's happening, and I need to keep going. And you're more inclined then to tackle the obstacles one by one and sit back and say, oh, that's too difficult. But you accept it's uncertain, so you act accordingly. You don't say, no, I know exactly what's going to happen, then you're totally surprised when it doesn't. Because most predictions of the future are extrapolations of the present, and most histories look back saying the future was a sudden change, which we weren't expecting. You look for opportunities, and respond to what you find. Two, I think, are important at the end there. One is, and I'm going to cover social capital in a minute, but I've never yet seen in a course on education, on enterprise, or a business plan, people talk about social capital. I'm suggesting it can be as important, if not more important, than financial capital. And we do put at the back skills that I saw one person who said he suggested for a new venture, you need to make, you need to sell, you need to control the money. And he didn't know any one person who could do all those well. And if you're going to grow at all and employ people, you also need to control people. So either find the skills yourself, or if you can't have them all yourself, and you probably can't, find partners, mentors, employers, employees, board members, whatever. Remember, there are some skills here. That is a very quick escape through those. There's a lot more in, this is the commercial plug. That's the book, and there's some leaflets about it here as well, where we cover that in more detail.
You can have a look at the book later.
Yes, yeah. But what, and it's, I borrowed this in Sarah's Barthy. No. Have we been unfair in the business plan? What we're saying, if you've got a seesaw out of balance, you don't balance it by putting weight in the middle, you put the weight on the other side. And what she says is not the business plan is never useful. You've got two tools. We suggest these principles are a general purpose effectuation tool. And then when you're in business, sometimes the business plan is useful. So why not have both tools in your toolbox? Instead of only thinking that's the only tool available, I've got to rely on that all the time.
I don't know whether I should have put the business model canvas, that's obviously come out there over the past few years now as the tool, the precursor to the business plan or something.
Yeah, it's probably better than the business plan. I don't think it's got all that I've got in my exploration. I don't think it talks about social capital. So it's a third tool, if you like, to add to the selection. So I wouldn't say it replaces either of these necessarily. But there are some times when someone's going to say, I want a business plan, and then you want to use it. What we don't want is start right at the beginning thinking that's the way forward. And just my final word on business plans, in a sense, is just to reflect on who is actually helped by them. Because my suggestion is the venturers themselves, especially if they're applying that principle of don't put at risk more than you afford to lose, then once they've got started, most of that is sunk cost, they now stand to gain a lot more from something that works well than they will lose if it doesn't. They are motivated towards it working well. But the advisors and supporters actually, I suggest, have more to lose if it fails than they gain if it works well. Then the bank has lent you money. Provided you do enough to repay the loan, they'll never get any more out of you. But if you fail and can't repay the loan, then they'll be criticised for making a bad loan. They want to avoid that. So they're trying to avoid failure, they're trying to achieve success. And I suggest those are not two sides of the same coin. And business plans help these ones to be cautious. These ones are not helped by that because they're not trying to be cautious, they're trying to succeed. And not showing that is perceived. These people think they're doing these people a favour by being cautious. And I think it's because of their motivation, not theirs.
Example, sorry guys, I had an event a couple of years back for business advisors and supporters, and Dr. Tom Fleming and DIT said, you guys are the problem because you see the problems. The entrepreneurs, venturers are there not so much not to see the problems but to get over them, because the advisors and supporters just fighting to gaze into it and saying this is, and are trying to cover it.
I put that comment about the benefit of getting started, getting momentum. Actually, my original thoughts of that came years ago when I was reading an article on what time. And I don't know why I was reading it, because I'm not really interested in what time. I don't know what to do with it. But I wish I'd kept the article, because what it was saying was people were trying harder and harder climbers. Now, these were not novice climbers, but they were saying increasingly the advice is if you want to try hard climb, don't stand back from the rock and work out what you're going to do. Because then you will see all the problems and it'll put you off. Get started, and then you deal with them one by one as you come up, and you have to keep going. If you really want to get to the top, get started. Don't stand back and analyze. But the advisors are standing back and analyzing because they don't want to advise the business that they're fails. They're the ones who are trying to avoid the failure. So that was a quick skate through where I think one of the bits of conventional wisdom which I'm questioning is the sort of automatic application of big business thinking when we think it's something to do with business. And that too especially comes through in business plans. The second bit, if I've got time to briefly mention, is where I think we have not covered something we ought to cover, and that is social capital. This is a diagram of, I picked as typical of assumed influences on entrepreneurship, because there are 8 there, of which 1 mentions the social side. As if you're trying to form policy there and you have a policy which or you're doing things that for 7 of those you could say, oh, 7 out of 8, you must really be doing very well. A different presentation comes from Danny Dennis in America. It talks about a lot of institutional support can be unfavourable, such as in communist Russia where it's illegal to start a business, or very favourable, and Ireland, Northern Ireland, South Ireland, but international comparisons say, yes, we've got favourable institutional support, it's easy to do with a lot of help available. But he puts culture in a different dimension. He says if the culture is unfavourable, then if everything's favourable, it's very easy. If the culture is unfavourable, then you could almost drag it out. And getting from there to there isn't done by getting that even more favourable. But a lot of tendency in policy is always to try and get that. And I hypothesize that, yes, I can imagine civil servants, not that good, in their day-to-day job, employed in economic development agencies, trying to make us more favourable. So from 9 to 5, that's what they're doing. But 5 to 9, where they're home and they're talking to their children, saying, what sort of thing are you going to university? Oh, law, that's good. Yes, that's a recognised. Medicine, that's good. You want your own business? Ooh. And actually, they're not aware that they're pushing people down here. We used to say in the enterprise, what's in the enterprise mix? If we go back to Adam Smith, he talked about things like that. That's just a sort of modern terminology for it. And we also added financial capital and intellectual capital. One way of looking at to compare that, I suggest that if those are the requirements for a healthy enterprise, it's rather like listing the requirements for healthy diet. But, what's going back to Columbus and long ocean voyages, we discovered that the sailors, when they're away from land on preserved food, they weren't going hungry, but there was something missing in their diet. And we eventually discovered it was vitamins. And I'm suggesting, actually, when you only give people these things, there is something missing, and that's the social capital. And they use the different of vitamins and you've got supply, if you're short of one, it doesn't matter. Having more of another is not helpful. You need the one you're short of. There are different forms of social capital. The trouble with the word social capital is some people doesn't mean anything to them. Other people it means all sorts of different things to different people. The trouble is, I don't know a better term for it. That's why I'm using it. Also, it does, I think, convey. It's something to do with social connections. And like financial capital, if you haven't accumulated it, you haven't got it to spend. And it isn't something that just suddenly comes. You have to work at it. I just want to suggest some different forms of it, just to explain it a little bit. And I'm taking Coleman's suggestion, he was one of the commentators on this, of three different categories, of which one is access to information. I think this is almost the easiest one. This is so often what you get from networking. You can talk to people, who do you know who's a customer, who I can approach, who is a supplier, how do things work? When I was involved in Hollywood in renovating the old National School, a group of us wanted to do this because it was a danger of being knocked down, it was a listed building. We talked to other people who were involved in this because they could tell us how to do it. I mean, one gave us very good advice on how to word the contract with our architecture advisors so that we didn't have to re-advertise for the next phase, but they weren't automatically employed for the next phase. So when we went for grants, the grant giver couldn't say, you've already contracted them, we can't grant it. It was a very small bit of wording in the contract which actually saved us a lot of trouble. We got that from asking people. Lots of information about business you get from people you know. And if you don't know the person who actually knows, you might know someone who knows someone. So actually, social connections are very helpful because you can't get all the information you need off the internet. That's almost an obvious use of social capital. And one source of that can't give you all the information you need. So that's a category. It's not necessarily just say, oh, we just need one source of information. We may need several. But source of information, one form of social capital. Another one I'm suggesting is this area of trust. I mean, Francis Fukuyama wrote a whole book on called Trust. And he said, it's not coincidence that the high trust societies have been places like Japan, Northern Europe, and America, and they're the ones that develop the best economies. Because if you think about it, and he compares North and South Italy, he said, North Italy, where you had essentially community involved in cities, and in cities you really have to trust your neighbour. You can't just lock everything all the time you're not at home. So you have to learn to trust your neighbour. In the countryside, you tend to trust the family and not the others. North Italy is city-based, South Italy is family-based, North Italy has the industry, South Italy has the mafia. And he says, without that, how do you do business when you can't trust the other person? No, they order from you. You've got to trust them. If you build it, they will take delivery. Once you deliver it, will they then pay? If you can't trust that, it's very difficult to do business. So a culture, can you share your ideas with people? Because that's often the way to work out things without them running away with it. So a culture of trust can be very useful. That's not bad information. Also, if you build trust with someone, they can lend that because they can introduce you then to someone else and say, this person we trust. So once you can build trust with one person, that can be passed on. So customers start trusting you because they will both trust you to be. So if you build up trust, you can use that. So I'm sorry, I'm rushing through this, but it seems to be this whole important area of trust, which is very helpful for business, social connections. And my third area, it's probably the hardest to think about, the most overlooked, but possibly the most important, is this norms of behavior. William Beaumont did a fascinating paper about 25 years ago, looking at, he suggests we have the same levels of entrepreneurship in societies throughout the world, throughout history. What matters is how they are applied. And he said it was society's rules. For instance, he said in ancient Rome, top level Roman society is very clear. If you owned land, lent it out, rented it out, that was acceptable. If you owned money, lent it out, rented it, that was acceptable. If you had a position of political power and you did favours to people with money, that was acceptable in society. Manufacturing business was not acceptable for people at the top of Roman society, so they didn't engage in it. And Rome never developed the Industrial Revolution. They had embryo steam engines, they had water power, they had lots of things like that. People at the top were not engaging that way because of society's rules. Different level of norms. Someone I know who was advising on a course for people unemployed, getting into self-employment, rental employment. She had a young man living at home, unemployed father, unemployed brother, ill mother. He wanted to set himself up as a jobbing gardener. He got some leaflets printed with his mobile phone number, distributed them around, and he started getting phone calls in the middle of the night. When he answered the mobile phone, it went dead. He was worried when the calls came, he thought it was, his mother was at the hospital, he thought it was a hospital with an emergency. He was talking to his advisor, he said, I think it's my mates, and she said, I'm sure it is. And what, you're mixing with a group of unemployed people who want you to be like them. He came back to her, he persevered, he came back to her because he'd done a job for a woman whose dog bit him, and then he disappeared. And she knew the advisor, and she said, I'm worried about what happened to him. And he eventually came back to the advisor and said, can I talk to you? He said, he probably said, my mates are telling me I must sue her. I'd be stupid not to. I'd make a lot of money. And she said to him, look, if you sue, you will never get another job. And stop treating these people as your mates. I read a book somewhere said, looking at obesity, and the authors concluded, we could so easily have concluded that obesity is caused by a virus, because people so clearly get it from the people they associate with. But if you think about it, therefore, if you want to stop smoking, you want to start socialising with non-smokers and thin people. Don't continue to socialise. You actually have a choice once you realise that. Same with entrepreneurs. If your social circle needs to help, your social circle, if they're not encouraging you to go down, it's very hard to do. If they're encouraging, they are, and you can choose the social circle you get encouragement from, if you're aware of it. So I think this norms meeting is a very overlooked one, and very important. And if we're talking about norms, that is crowd behaviour, that's Starbucks. Going from where they've been eating to where they've been roots, but they don't go straight there. They go, and the whole flock may be moving in one direction, when big slicks are still swirling away, actually going the other direction. They're clearly interacting with each other. They're not following a single leader. The whole crowd behaviour is because they're all interacting with all the others and trying to keep together. And I think it's an awful lot of that in the way we do business. This is again those norms. We're not, in a sense, we're such a social animal, we're not conscious of how socially influenced we are. Because I use that because that flock of starling is rather like a cloud. Karl Popper once said, we've got two sorts of systems. We've got the clocks, and since Newton, he said, who Newton's simple laws of gravity meant he could predict the motion of planets with clock-like accuracy. We've tended to think that the more we look at things, the more we can reduce the clocks, and then we can predict exactly what's going to happen. He said, actually, that's followed, because you can't. Most things are much more like clouds. Clocks, they're very complicated, but you can work out if that moves, that moves, that moves, so that if I do that, that will happen. If I take that bit out and clean it and improve it and put it back, the whole thing works better. We can't do that with clouds. You say much more things are clouds, and that flock of starling is cloud-like behavior. Because we tend to think we're rational. As I said earlier, big business assumes businesses do things for rational, logical reasons. Small businesses are often the product of the person who is very socially influenced. Going back to Russell McGilchrist as well, that was another comment they have just on the power of this social influence. And because I'm back here over time, just actually my last slide, just to summarize it all. I think my initial point, just because we've been been taught one thing for a long time, we shouldn't assume that's the right. We should question a lot of things. And this was Daniel Kahneman pointing out, once we've accepted a theory for a long time, we tend not to question it. And I suggest we should, because a lot we're finding, I think, in entrepreneurship and enterprise, actually a lot of the things which we started to assume 30 years ago we started to explore, we've now got to go back and question those assumptions. I've just mentioned the application of big business thinking, which we shouldn't do, and the relevant social capital, which we should recognise. There are lots of others. But that was a quick introduction to those two. So sorry for keeping you for lunch, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Simon. We'll take a few minutes for questions and then we have lunch. So take your time. We're all here for the take together. I just want to introduce Erin Farnoff, who's sitting down at the back patiently. She'll be speaking to later on in the afternoon. So thanks for coming along, Erin. Sorry for holding you up. Okay, questions?
Hi.
Terry.
Yeah, I found it very enlightening, actually. I enjoyed that a lot. Could I ask a question, please? Your diagram where you talk about influences on entrepreneurship, and you had two different diagrams, and I like the square box where you show us institutional versus cultural.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we know in Ireland that we have a very good or very strong entrepreneurial spirit, but it's our culture that seemingly is holding us back.
I think it's the same in Northern Ireland. I think we're down.
Yeah, so then we go back to your the types of behaviour that we have, which is the Irish are very good at networking, and I mean they're experts at it. And we're also, I would think that we have a high culture of trust. So is it this norms of behaviour that has us down in this
I put it last, but I think it can be the most powerful one because it's almost the one we least appreciate.
Which part of the norms of our behaviour is holding us back, keeping us down there? Do you think?
There's so much more I could have put in there. I've got a little diagram which I got from, which was really showing three levels of human society. It's got the macro social level, which is almost the nation or the gender or the social class. It's got the individual, and in between it has the micro social level, which is the club or the tribe or the gang. And the author of that suggested that, particularly again in Western Europe, we've tended to look at either the nation or the individual. We've assumed the individual makes a logical decision about entrepreneurship, or we look, and GEM is an example of this, at the national conditions. We don't look at what's happening in your small social circle. I suggest if your small social circle is not particularly encouraging for trying to do something that your own business. But for instance, the young people very much says, you pick up that if I'm a lawyer or a doctor, conveys to get involved club, but your own business. Once it's a successful business, that's different. But to start with, that doesn't automatically get you social recognition. You sort of somehow absorb this, just as Beaumont's Romans absorbed that it wasn't approved of to be a manufacturing business. It's the unwritten, unrecorded, unrecognised rules of society. I think it's a question of how we somehow change that.
And do you think then that could translate then to institutions? You know what I mean? So say for instance, DCU, we have business, we have communications, we have science, we have engineering, and they're all kind of exist in silos, and then you have that type of thinking within each silo.
I admit I don't know the absolute answer to this. I'm almost making suggestions that I think my interpretation of the results of a lot of policy is clear. We haven't got the evidence we ought to have got if it was working. So a lot of, I think, Netherlands policy is working. I think this is an area because we've been doing a lot of that and it hasn't worked. And that's because we haven't recognised it. So I'm suggesting that we need to recognise this. I don't know exactly how we do it. Yeah. But, what examples in the north of Ireland, two are. One is in drink driving. We used to exercise when we tried to stop it. The chance of getting caught and the penalties if you were caught. If you make it logically, you don't want to do it. The advertising is now very much saying, can you socially live with causing someone's death? And I think that actually, amongst the people I know, whereas 20, 30 years ago, people might have said, oh, I got away with it last night, and be proud of it. Now they wouldn't admit to it, because they know it's become socially unacceptable to do it. Doesn't mean no one does it, but I think the social acceptability has changed, and I think that's been from that advertising. So that was one example where we tried to address it. I think we also do it in literature. I've got a couple of photographs taken very recently in Belfast. One of the old signs saying, "Litter wardens in this area penalty for dropping litter £25. You get caught and you get fined." The new poster is for young people in cartoon. She's looking at him and said, "You threw that cigarette packet away." Disgusting. Trying to present it as socially unacceptable to drop litter. That's just one example of it. Again, if you look at the powerful, that the young man I was talking about, it was his mates who were really seriously holding him back from pursuing his own business because they clearly hadn't bought into that. Their influence on him, like the phone calls and the advice to sue, clearly contrary to what he needs to do to build a business. But he hadn't thought of it in those terms. He hadn't realized how much that club or gang was holding him back because of the norms within that group. I think you can probably build groups within the institution. I had one example in Finland where the students themselves had started an enterprise club. And I suddenly thought, yes, if you start an enterprise club and you join, you are really going to be motivated to start something. Even if you only had half a dozen members, those are going to be the half a dozen members who really influence your behaviour.
That's part of the reason that we emphasise so much in your second assignment. Who are the stakeholders you need to engage with? How are you going to persuade them? So that was very much part of this thinking of social capital. And I'm proud to say, Simon, I do teach social capital in my module about entrepreneurship and emphasise hugely with the students that they have to go out and talk to other people and attend events. So one of the things I do with my module about entrepreneurship, which is, it's kind of case studies and so on, is bonus marks if you go and attend other events off campus to do with entrepreneurship and come back and do a presentation in class on that. I specifically say bonus marks. It's not obligatory. And it's partly to get them to realise that they are being given an opportunity to get extra marks. So they get their grades for the module, and then if they do this extra thing, they get a top up on their grades. It could bring them up from a 2.2 to a 2.1, for example, or even more. And it has in the past, because it's about them going out, going to events off campus about entrepreneurship and hanging around with people. It's that socialising, hanging around with the people who talk about this. Leah Van Malen, a graduate of DCU, a serial entrepreneur, that's her main piece of advice I've heard her saying to students: hang around with entrepreneurs, hang around with people who are going to encourage you with it. So one of my students, her mother and father said, "What would you be doing bothering yourself with all of that? Would you not go out and enjoy yourself just like other young people and get a proper job?" So she was physically struggling, I hope not, but she was struggling with her own parents discouraging her while we were in college encouraging her.
Why do young people take up smoking?
Peer pressure.
It's peer pressure is extremely strong, and one reason it's strong is we just don't appreciate it. Sorry,
Somebody else have a question?
I have a less intelligent question, and it was about, do you know if that guy succeeded, or did he? The
last I heard, he was still persevering. Okay. But I only knew about him through his mentor, and I haven't seen her for the last 6 months. But twice she said to him, "Look, you've really got to find different mates. If you've got, so I'm afraid I don't know the final answer, but the strong advice was, they are holding you back. You've got a choice. You can continue to socialise with them, or you can
There's a sociologist in America, Portes, P-O-R-T-E-S, and he talks about that social capital. And it's largely, say, within the Hispanic community or the Black African American community, was why are you acting like the white people? Why are you acting like the people who don't belong to our club? So it's about those inward ties rather than the outward ties in the network. And that when somebody from our community starts acting like those people who don't belong anymore. That's
I like that quote from Earls. I heard he wrote a book called Herd, as in the herd instinct. I got the book, which is a fascinating book, because I heard him interviewed on the radio. And on the radio, he explained it that independent thinking is to humans and swimming is to cats. They can do it if they have to. Have you ever seen a cat swim?
And the same applies in large business. You think about the right instance of to developers.
Yeah.
But it works the other way as well. I worked many years ago with partnership companies and it applied in education as much as entrepreneurship. If somebody was the first in 3 or 4 generations to get a job or to get into higher education, struggling all as they did, that created a positive peer pressure back. That's what peer pressure itself is. And that's what the role models, I think, are vital.
And the role model, that local kid around the corner is a more powerful role model than the pictures that Owen Costello showed us.
Yeah.
Like I had a student once from Cork. He was from a very middle class background. His father and his uncle, the father and the father's brother, had grown up in an orphanage. You couldn't make the story up. They'd grown up in an orphanage. This guy had done very well, Adam. He had announced he was going up to Dublin to university and he was going to do his degree through Irish. So he was really trailblazing. And that triggered his father. Adam was in the careers office in here on the campus one day, and he was reading about what a social worker does. And he realised his father, the long-term unemployed man, was doing all of this in his own community for nothing, for the dough. And he went home and told his father, there's this thing called a social worker, this is, And that triggered the father to go back to school to finish his leaving cert, and then he ended up in UCC doing an access course and going on, I think, to do a degree in sociology or social work. It also triggered the uncle saying to Adam, do you remember when I was young and you always asked me to read you a story? You know, tell me, read me a story. And I always said, I'll tell you a story, but I won't read one. It was because I can't read. And it triggered the uncle to go back and learn how to read. And then at one stage, Adam had to summons his father and say, Daddy, I know you're really enjoying college, but you must spend more time with Mammy and the rest of the family. So huge role reversal, but look at that trigger that whoever helped Adam reach his potential in school, because obviously a load of teachers were there providing him with whatever, realizing his potential and encouraging him, and then he was encouraging here with us. And look at the trigger effect it had on the father and the uncle.
I'll tell you this very briefly because of time. Yesterday, I came across maybe a potential at them. I had, during the year, I had a group of entrepreneurship students that were year 2, and I had them, because of the numbers, they were generally group projects, etc. So I noticed that Woodland wasn't getting a look in, just something that triggered. And I found a way around where they would give me a presentation and do it privately and with a business idea. So he was the first up. He didn't share his idea. If this was new to him, he was a little bit intrepid about it, even sharing it with me. I have to say, he had a marvelous idea. I'm there looking around to see where I can, what can I do with this, and what can I do with it fast, and to keep this idea for him. And he had a voice. And I asked him a few pertinent questions, and he said, yeah, in the first year, he had been absolutely and utterly delighted with the course. Second year, the group had fallen into a norm where they had two or three people who spoke all the time and who had their ideas and the right way of doing it and the right way of getting through college. And yeah, it's really, I suppose I want to find a way to, around whatever I want, to make sure that we continue in this particular vein. But yeah, I was really enthused yesterday.
So hopefully you're enthused today as well.
Oh yeah, no, but it was great to see him. He's 19, and I was delighted. I was really pleased.
But in terms of what Simon has been saying, particularly with social capital and so on, that's partly what we want you to develop in yourselves, and that's why we've emphasised the stakeholders. We've emphasised having the on-campus workshops and not doing it all by distance education, even how you're working with group assignments and so on. Because it's about creating your network where it's the norm to be an entrepreneurial educator and to adopt, the latest understandings we have about how best to create entrepreneurial graduates.
I'm starting even earlier, and I have a whiteboard in my kitchen,
And I'm taking some quotes from what we're doing here and from various entrepreneurs, and I'm putting them up on the whiteboard and going through Henry Ford or whatever with my very young children. So, like, I feel that if I start early like that hopefully will have some impact on them, you know. But I had the benefit of doing this course, being in education and all that kind of stuff, so I can give that to my children, as I'm sure everyone else here can, you know. But that's key as well, the education of the parents, and not all the time will there be someone to look after an Adam or your student, you know, but it's at a very early age for us to realise the legal responsibility as well, to create those type of, you know.
But all the kids aren't going to be entrepreneurs. It's the only thing.
No, but it's the entrepreneurs.
Some people very much are, in many ways, whether it's social entrepreneurs or, you know.
But it's a mindset though, it's getting away from the culture in Ireland that has been so prevalent, you know,
I think
of
it's
the
begrudgery.
begrudgery and why you do that and all of that kind of stuff, but we are moving away from that.
It's interesting booklet I read, not that long ago. So I point out the distinction between self-employment and employment only arose at the beginning of the last century. He suggests because it was really at the point of the Industrial Revolution, once employers had big, expensive machines which needed to be used by skilled people and in shift work to make their capital. They needed employees who would turn up on time, and if they trained them, would stay. So they gave them contracts of employment. Before that, most employment was, I'll pay you so much if you do the job. You did the job almost in your own time. You took it home, or if you went down the mine, tried to shift enough coal back, it didn't matter when you did it. And so the distinction we have of employment is actually very recent. Most people just, even if we thought they were employees, were really on just contract work. Until as recently as just over 100 years ago, which I thought was an interesting take. We've so adjusted to employment being the norm, we forget it's been the norm very recently.
Okay, I'm conscious of time. Can we move to the lunchroom, and if you have any more questions,